Hey everybody, it is Natalie from Power Moon Tarot, and I am talking very, very quietly right now because it is late at night. And if you are joining me, hello and welcome. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the technology is working okay. I thought I would jump on for this very weird and impromptu live stream here tonight. I don't normally, in fact, I'm not normally even really up this late. So, but I thought tonight I am up late and it is a very quiet and stormy night where I'm at. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of update on what's going on with the Mercury retrograde. Now, let me check in real quick here. Oh, everything's up and hi, Gilly. Oh, it's 3:46 a.m. in Scotland. Gilly, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Good morning. It is 10:45 p.m. where I am. And I just got done taking my dog for a walk, a very short walk because it's very late. But it's very cold where I'm at right now. And I mean, very cold, whatever. It's probably like 40. It's not that cold. But it's very like stormy and kind of witchy night, and the fresh air hit me kind of hard, and I thought there's no way I can go to sleep after I get back inside. I should jump on and do a video. Hi, hippie, Vancouver, coming. Oh, you know what? You are on the West Coast. Hippie, I have been to Vancouver. I used to live in Seattle, and um, I visited Vancouver a couple of times. It's a beautiful city. And yeah, actually, it's like early in the evening on the West Coast. And Gilly, you rejected somebody. Was that the person I did the reading for you like a month ago when I did the reading? Was that the guy that I did? Hi, Holly. Hello, hello, hello. And thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for keeping me company tonight on this very cold and weird and witchy night. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. And I've got the chart up for the moment right now. And I thought I would kick us off. I love this deck right here. This is like I forget what it's called. It's a winter witches deck. And I thought I would kick us off with a card from here tonight to set the mood, if you will. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the astrology of 2025. I put so much work and effort into putting together the presentation, and I'm almost done with it. And I'm really, it's going to be even better than last year for sure. Um, so let me go ahead. I'm going to get us a little card here to get us going. Do you guys have any good Mercury retrograde stories for what you've been? I mean, I know it's Mercury's only been retrograde for like 4 or 5 days now, so it's not like it's been a forever long thing. Let me get us a little card here to start off our evening. Ooh, poinsettia. Okay, and I'll show you guys the picture of the card right there. It says poinsettia on it. And it was funny because I was at an event, or I forget where I was, but I actually saw a bunch of poinsettias, and it says, "Cast the shadows, scream into the silence of them, dear witch. What lurks inside transforms into the most beautiful of beauty." Oh my gosh, wow. Cast the shadows, scream silence at them, dear witch. What lurks inside transforms into the most beautiful of beauty. Oh my God. Interesting. And I love very regal photo. I love her all white outfit against the red flowers right there. Very beautiful energy for the holidays. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde. So, what's really funny is every single Mercury retrograde. So my boyfriend's a double Gemini and he's got his sun and moon in Gemini. And every time Mercury retrograde comes up, he always has a car problem and there's always an issue with his car. So on the night that Mercury went retrograde, the very first day of the Mercury retrograde, he came home from work and he's like, I locked my key in my car. I locked it in my car and he doesn't have a spare. So he locked his key in his car and he was kind of upset about it because, now he's got to pay $200 to get a locksmith and all of that. Well, the next morning he got up and he found the key in the grass outside right by his car, having just lain there all night. And luckily he didn't call the locksmith and luckily he didn't get his car stolen or anything like that. But it's kind of interesting with this Mercury retrograde because it is opposite Jupiter. And there could be a lot of like losing things and finding things and discovering things. But it kind of made me laugh because every time, you guys, every single time there is a damn Mercury retrograde, something happens with his car. It just happens. Okay. So I wanted to draw a little line there between, here's where Mercury is right now, Mercury in Sagittarius, opposite Jupiter in Gemini. And as we know, Gemini is Mercury's sign and Sagittarius is Jupiter's sign. So they're in a mutual reception right now, which is kind of interesting along that energy of losing something and finding something or thinking that something is really, really bad or really awful or really horrible. And then at the last minute, something kind of comes in to save you with it. And you did that with your phone twice. You lost your phone. Oh, 3 nights you left it outside. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Um, leaving like your keys, leaving all that. And anyway, it happened to me at the very start of the Mercury retrograde. I kept forgetting like basic words and basic phrases as I was talking to people and trying to like tell a story. I kept just forgetting my words and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like welcome to Mercury retrograde again." So, and Holly says there's no lock Mercury can't get into. His spiritual locksmith came to the rescue. His spiritual locksmith. Oh my God, Holly, I'm gonna have to tell him that one. That is really funny. Of course, like when I first, I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, but when I first like, got with him and he would have all these car issues coming up around Mercury retrograde, I'd be like, oh my God. And now it's just kind of like par for the course. I'm used to it now. I'm like, yeah, you'll find your key. It's gonna be okay. But yeah, that is, and you're right, Mercury is definitely like the locksmith. And you know what's the craziest thing? I feel like I just saw an apparition pass behind me in that doorway. Do you guys see that doorway behind me where my finger is pointing? I actually feel like I just saw like an apparition pass through right behind me there. And when I tell you like there is something in the air tonight, I don't know what it is. It's a very interesting energy tonight. And the moon is in Scorpio, and it's really been in Scorpio all day. And it is opposite Uranus right now too. So, yeah, with that moon in Scorpio, it definitely is kind of like that spooky energy going on for sure. I don't know why it feels like Halloween tonight to me, or why it feels like a witchcraft night to me tonight, but it kind of feels that way. And it's interesting because I don't think everyone would agree that astrology is witchcraft or whatever. I don't think everyone would like agree with that. But I'm gonna tell you guys, like going forward, um, I don't think it's that big of a problem to be disagreeable in your philosophies. And personally, for me, I do think astrology is a part of divination. And I do think it is, well, of course, it's a part of divination. Everyone knows that. But I do think it is a part of witchcraft. I do think astrology, divination, I mean, essentially, it's all witchcraft at the end of the day. Which might be kind of simplistic, and people may want to fight me on that point. But in the spirit of Mercury retrograde today, I just felt like saying whatever I wanted to say and not really, and just kind of throwing out random ideas that may or may not make sense and people may or may not agree with. But there is something fundamentally very witchy about astrology. And of course, everyone knows like tarot has always been associated with, um, the psychic arts and witchcraft and all of that. But over the last however many years, astrology has gotten a lot more scientific in the way that it's really rooted in data and analysis, and it can get very left-brained. Astrology can get very, very left-brained if you want to, if you really, really want to go deep into it. But on the other hand, I do think there is this divinatory, like witchcraft aspect of astrology. So if you see me talking tonight and you see an apparition pass behind me, or you see something in the mirror that's behind me, you guys can let me know. Okay, because I feel like that is what we are up to, is practicing witchcraft. And as soon as I said that, my dog barked, actually. So welcome to the webcast. Welcome to the witchcraft. And where we don't get burned at the stake, but we do offer disagreeable opinions that other people may not like. Okay. And so, yeah, I do think this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius does have the opportunity to be kind of lighthearted and uplifting. And Lord knows we could use the energy. Like we could really fucking use the energy right now of like, and Mercury in Sagittarius retrograde, like huge potty mouth, huge potty mouth, and just saying whatever you want type of energy. But I think we could all use like a little bit of brevity or a little bit of levity, or just a moment of unbridled optimism to believe whatever we want and say whatever we want, where everything has been feeling like very uncertain, but very rigid. And I don't know how you can have a reality where, and this is a total Saturn and Pisces thing, where you can have a reality that is at the same time incredibly uncertain, but also very rigid. And I feel like that's the container that we've been in. And it's actually been very maddening. And I feel like some of us mentally are kind of needing to escape from the, I don't know what you want to call it. We're needing to escape from the, I was going to call it the psychotic prison, okay, of Saturn and Pisces. Like, we need to escape from the psychotic prison of Saturn and Pisces and really like let our minds expand. And I think with the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, it's like, okay, how can I expand my mind without going crazy or without like, losing, like becoming too overwhelmed with my thoughts? How can I let my mind breathe? How can I let my mind explore? How can I make room for new ideas to come through? And I think that that is a very interesting thought, right? Um, and now Holly says, the first astronomers were astrologists. Yeah, and Gilly Max says, "Do you, boo?" is some of the wisest advice I've ever been given, and was written on a post of a cartoon cat's butt of a friend that passed me. And life is so paradoxical. It is very, very paradoxical. I agree. You do you, boo, right? And I love that aspect of when we get into that Mercury and Sagittarius energy of defining your own truth and not really caring so much about what everyone else thinks about the way that you are defining your truth. And I have to tell you, like, it's a very weird relationship that I've had with astrology over the last couple of years, especially as I've been going through, um, like, you know, the last couple of years for me have been, like, straight up honest with you guys, have been like some of the most challenging years for me of my life. Like, really, really, they have been. And like, health wise, emotionally and mentally, like, the last couple of years have been really, really challenging for me. And one of the, like, main things that has kind of kept me going in life has been, and this is going to sound really weird, but it has been, you know, the excitement of watching the astrology unfold in front of my eyes, right? And the best way to learn it is by living it and by observing the world around you, and then seeing how it plays out, right? And we are alive in a certain time for a reason, I feel like. And part of that is to observe, like, is to really, really be observers of what is happening around us. And I think with the South Node in Virgo next year, there is this deep spiritual energy around observing and being, like, quiet as a mouse or being as silent as a mouse, and observing the energy around you and pulling the data that you can get from that on a deeper spiritual level. When everyone else is out, like, freaking out and melting down, there are going to be people who are going to be really quiet and kind of observing everything and taking everything in. And I think that that is an interesting energy. And Gilly Max says, we are warrior women who never stop trying and loving. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And you have to, I feel like, in life, you have to continue to keep, like, trying something for yourself, right? Otherwise, the, like, prison that we, that very unforgiving prison that we can get in, can become very suffocating and isolating. And Mercury in Sagittarius is about letting it breathe and letting our ideas come to life and putting them out there and letting them breathe. And I really, really like that energy. Um, for us. I do, after feeling like trapped kind of in a very rigid experience that is, like, not changing, but is also kind of, like, miserable. That Saturn and Pisces energy has been very heavy, and a lot heavier than I expected or anticipated or even remembered. Because if you are, you know, 35 plus, you have experienced Saturn and Pisces in your life before. Okay. For those that are younger, not so much. But if you're older, if you're 35 and plus, you have had Saturn and Pisces in your life before. And I mean, I had it, I think I was 14 or 15 when Saturn was in Pisces for me, but I do not, I don't remember it being this bad. I'm like, I don't remember it being this bad. Oh my God, it's bad, right? Saturn and Pisces has been really, really bad. And I think we need, like, humor. And I think Mercury in Sagittarius is really good at bringing humor and bringing laughter, and bringing some fun to the table. Thank God, right? Thank God. And Zennials are definitely looking for the burn gel right now. And Gillyback says that makes sense. Yeah. So one thing I was going to talk about in the United States right now, we just, and I know, Gilly, you are, you're in Scotland, right? Yeah, you're in Scotland. And then we had Hippie joining from Vancouver. So not everybody, and Holly, I think you're in the US, but not everybody is from the US. But in the US, we recently had Thanksgiving, and today was, like, Black Friday. For anyone who's on the webcast, did you go out and see if there were any Black Friday sales? Did you go out and check prices or try to buy anything? I think the Mercury opposite Jupiter during Black Friday is very interesting, because there could be like a tendency to overspend or like bait and switch tactics as well going on. And we know this from last year, right? And we know that Black Friday has turned into a free for all of crap where they hike up the prices the month before. And then when you go to try to find deals, they just basically slash the price down to a little bit, and it's actually more expensive than it was before. And that like kind of bait and switch or gotcha energy, could be like clever schemes to kind of rip people off. Could definitely be like a Mercury and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini as well. And hopefully nobody got that. Sparkles of Gold is here. Oh my gosh. Hi, it is so good to see you, my friend. I have been thinking about you and wondering where's Waldo? And where's Wenda? And where is Sparkles of Gold in the world? I miss you, my friend. We definitely need to connect. Um, I know we need to talk. I really do miss you. And I am third house fried for sure. This Mercury, this Mercury in Sagittarius retrograde is in my third house. As Sparkles of Gold knows that, knows my chart and knows that, yeah, I am definitely fried and for sure. So welcome Sparkles of Gold to the live stream. I'm actually taking inspiration from you, my dear friend. Um, and my dear friend Sparkles of Gold goes live many times and just randomly goes on these wild live streams. And I really admire the way that he does his channel and the way that he interacts with the people that follow his work. It's really raw and it's really refreshing. And I have to tell you, my dear friend, Sparkles of Gold, which is weird to call you that because I know you as Nicholas and I know you say your name too on your channel. So I won't feel bad about saying it. But um, I remember I was listening to one of your videos, my dear friend, around the September eclipse when we had that Pisces eclipse. And I was listening to what you were saying about it, and you were like, okay, everybody calm down. Don't scare yourself. You're basically telling people try not to scare yourself during this eclipse. And those words just hit my heart like so hard. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, what a gift. And what an amazing thing to remind people because when the energy gets really Pisces like that and really blowing out like that, it is easy to feel like you're going insane or you're going kind of wild and crazy. And yeah, and the reminder to like calm down and chill and not go crazy with things. I feel like I needed to hear it in that moment. And I was like, ah, I just wanted to tell you that, my friend, that really helped me when you said that. And I love how, like, as astrologers and as friends of one another, that we can help each other in those ways. And I feel like sometimes we don't even know how we are helping each other, but we are helping each other. And it is felt and it is seen and it is known. And sometimes, like, we don't know how our work is affecting people or if it's even reaching anyone, but it is, and I think with the North Node going into Pisces, we're going to have more opportunities next year to connect with people on a more deep emotional level. And I feel like that is, compassion, sincerity, connecting on a deeper level. I do feel like these things are very much needed, particularly with all the Mars energy that is going to be coming through next year. And And yeah, Gilly Mac says exactly like buy our store a loyalty card and get this cheesecake for $4. Yeah, the insane in the membrane. Yeah, Rach is magic, insane in the membrane. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, yes, Nicholas is my phone a friend lifeline for sure. We've been each other's phone a friend lifelines for a long time, actually, for both each other. But yeah, it's, and it is about, Mercury retrograde is about going back and connecting with people. And it's been cool because a couple friends have been friends that I haven't talked to so much recently have kind of popped up for me, which is a very nice part of the Mercury retrograde. Um, I also want to talk a little bit about with this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini about, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, about opening up our minds to greater fields of exploration. And it was really weird when I was preparing my astrology of 2025 for you guys, preparing the presentation. It's like right around the time that Mercury was going retrograde, all of a sudden I have all these new ideas coming through. And it's like I really started to it's like I had a breakthrough and I started seeing things on a much grander scale. And I really did feel like, okay, my mind is shifting and my mind is wanting to make room for more concepts or more information to come through. And so if you feel your mind making those adjustments during this Mercury retrograde, of letting the mind open up to a greater field of awareness so that you can pull through more insights, I do feel that that could feel really incredibly nice for people that have been feeling like really boxed in with particular lines of thought. I also feel like with this Mercury retrograde that focusing on where your thoughts are headed, right? Because with Sagittarius, it's about the journey. And I will say that because of my medical condition that I've been going through for the last year or so, I have been indulging more in like the wacky tobacco, to be honest, and to be blunt with you guys. I've been enjoying the wacky tobacco like way more than I would normally, and I don't normally, but it has helped me like relax my mind and it has helped me take down my nervous system about like 10 million degrees, which I really, really have needed to do. And one thing that I realized, like when I was indulging in the wacky tobacco, is that my mind kept wanting to um, like go down these thought processes where I was thinking about my pain, or I was thinking about the things that were bringing me pain, or I was getting sucked into observing other people's pain and trying to figure out what was wrong with them. And even if I was just like casually watching a TV show that had nothing to do with me, and I'm like, why is my mind like slipping in and why is it like doing this thing? And it's like we need a group for like overthinkers unite, right? And I was like, why is my mind like constantly switching? And I'm noticing my mind do it, right? I'm noticing my mind switch these levels of consciousness. And I'm like, wait, 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 wait. Okay. I'm like, back it up, back it up. I'm telling myself this, right? Back it up, back it up. Do not let your mind keep going to all these different levels. Try to stay anchored in your body. Try to, stay feeling good in the body, right? Rather than going on all these mental tangents. And I feel like that is very interesting information for this Mercury and Sagittarius, because there is that aspect of wanting to go out and explore every level that you can, every field of awareness that you can. But sometimes, like, if you find your nervous system getting overwhelmed with that or getting too caught up in that, it's like, okay, I need to kind of take it back. I need to pull it back. I need to go because I mean, why smoke the wacky tobacco if it's just going to make you go down 1,000 other rabbit holes. You really just want to chill out your nervous system and chill out your body, right? Which is what I was trying to do. And speaking of that, I can feel the heat even rising within me as I'm talking right now, which I'm going to take a moment and tell my mind to dial it down. Okay. Dial it down, dial it down. And I'm excited because I can be talking and I feel well enough to be talking to you guys right now. So I'm like really excited to be feeling well and talking to you. But at the same time, like, right, we need to try to keep the energy like as chill as possible. And so that is something that I'm working on within myself. And it may be something that you're working on within yourself too, if you're watching this video or you're resonating with anything that I am saying. And for those of you that have Mercury Mars in your own chart, I have Mercury square Mars in my chart. And the tendency for me to get overheated while I'm talking, or the tendency for me to like rush my words and then have them spill out of my mouth, I really have to like call that energy in. And maybe you have that in your chart too, and you know what I mean. But Mercury retrogrades are really good to think about your thinking and your communication, and if there's anything you'd like to change around that. Like, I explain myself way too much, or I mention the same point multiple times over and over and over again, which I'm guilty of. I know I do that. Sometimes I'll explain a point like multiple times over and over and over again to someone, and they're like, I freaking got it. You know, so so those are things that we can think about cleaning up our communication habits in the way that we engage during Mercury retrograde. um Okay, so those are some things, some thoughts that I had. Another thing that I would like to talk about with Mercury retrograde is in Sagittarius in particular, is the discovery of nuance, right? And if you've studied anything in depth in your life, okay, any particular class or hobby, or you've tried to learn something, and you learn the basic rules and framework around it, right? But then later down the road, you start discovering nuances over here, this little nuance, that little nuance, right? And I feel like with the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, we could be discovering a lot of nuances to things and a lot of like exceptions to the exception to the exception. And when we start getting into a lot of nuance, there can be a tendency to get lost or a tendency to lose the original point. And perhaps that's something we are going to focus on during this Mercury retrograde. Black and white thinkers. I don't know if you guys have ever, maybe you are a black and white thinker yourself, like you learn something, you commit it to memory, and it's like, I'm never going to like learn another piece of information that will challenge that ever again. This is it. I'm not moving on from that thought, right? Which I think could be very much like a fixed sign Mercury, which could be like Mercury in Taurus, Mercury in Leo, Scorpio, or Mercury in Aquarius, where you get very like fixated on a particular thought and idea, and you get into more of a black and white thinking kind of a mentality. And I feel like Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is not interested in black and white mentality. It's interested in the gray area. It's interested in nuance, right? And nuance can be if you're studying a new like a new field of study or something like that, or you're learning something new in your life, nuance can take a really long time to learn and understand. And it can really like knock you off your guard too. Like you have a certain structure built around information that you know. And then you learn one little fact that kind of is like a nuance or an exception. And it's like, oh my God, now my whole understanding is like fucked up and now I don't know. And now because I learned this, now I'm questioning 500 other things, right? Like learning this one new piece of information is causing me to re-question everything that I just learned. Right. And I feel like that energy could come up with Mercury, Sagittarius, opposite Jupiter and Gemini. It kind of reminds me of a guy that I worked with who he was a very black and white person, and he would get very fixated on a particular issue. And I remember I was in a training with him at one point, and like we were learning new things that kind of challenged those set of beliefs. And he was literally like blowing up, and kind of like you could see him kind of like melting down, and the wheels like spinning and going out of control and sort of like melting down. And so I feel like this Mercury retrograde may be exhausting for people that are really black and white type of people, who are like, you know, my thinking about this particular issue is this particular way, right? But along comes Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius and is like blowing up your spot with new things that you hadn't considered before. And so I think nuance is something that's really coming up for this Mercury retrograde, and how comfortable people are with black and white thinking, or how much people are willing to challenge their black and white thinking to make room for nuance and to make room for new understanding for nuance, right? And sometimes it feels like, especially with Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius, that our mind is like really being stretched in like these really like funky ways. And it's like, okay, is the universe playing a practical joke on me or something? Because it feels like our minds are just getting stretched in these new ways, and it can feel a little uncomfortable. But I also think Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini could be a Mercury retrograde where people are needing more humor, or needing to watch like more comedy, or take in a comedy show, or laugh more. Or I know I was watching a TikTok video the other day, and oh my God, it made me, and it was very childish humor, very funny, like prankster kind of childish humor. And it made me laugh so hard. I was actually crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know? And so I think that Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini could also be that need to like laugh and have fun, and, you know, have like kind of like a childish sense of humor, and, you know, like laugh so hard that you start crying, like that type of energy, or playing like practical jokes or a little bit type of energy, you know, sneaking a whoopee cushion under someone. Like, you know, if anyone has an impulse to kind of sneak a whoopee cushion underneath somebody's bum, you know, that would be that would be very Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini, and everybody gets a big laugh out of it, and it's really funny, and people go on with their day, right? And that could be kind of more of a harmless part of the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini. Now, at some point, you can see right now that we don't really have any planets. That is the part of fortune. So that does not count in this particular transit chart. But we don't really have any planets in Virgo right now. The South Node is actually in Libra, and the nodes move backwards. So the node is getting ready to shift. The South Node is getting ready to shift back into Virgo at the beginning of next year. But right now, we don't really have anything in Virgo. But what do we have in Pisces, right? We have Saturn in Pisces. And we know that Saturn, Mercury and Jupiter are both retrograde right now. So they're both a little out of pocket. And Saturn is actually the one that has forward motion right now. And Saturn went direct, I think it was November 15th on that Taurus full moon that Saturn actually went direct at 12 degrees Pisces. And that can feel kind of interesting. Let me get rid of, I have so much writing going on. Let me show you guys Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is actually direct, but Mercury in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini is not. Both planets are retrograde right now. So that could be the person who is playing the practical joke or putting the whoopee cushion underneath somebody's bum before they sit down. And then, you know, the Saturnian person is sitting down on the whoopee cushion and is like, you know, like, how dare you, right? And the Jupiter, you know, the Mercury opposite Jupiter and Gemini person's like, what? I'm just having fun. I'm just enjoying myself. And the Saturnian person's like, I can't believe you did that, you know? So I do think that, you know, some of that might come into play as well. Because with Saturn and Pisces, it's like, okay, who's actually, somebody needs to be the adult in the situation, or somebody needs to be the serious one in the situation, right? And right now, both Jupiter and Mercury are not like, they are getting ready to square. I mean, they're within the orb of squaring Saturn, but they're just going to get tighter and tighter as both of them continue to retrograde. They're just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter with that Saturn. So at the beginning of the retrograde, it feels very like expansive and fun or free or saying whatever the hell you want. And then as the retrograde progresses onward, it kind of starts to feel more like, you know, grumpy old Saturn kind of raining on the parade a little bit, and the rope tightens a little bit with that Saturn in Pisces. And so we may see where people are like, you know, having diarrhea of the mouth or like sharing too much. And, you know, there is that tendency when you have like an overshare. Have you guys ever had it when you've like overshared something with the person you've barely known? And then all of a sudden the room kind of like falls quiet and everyone kind of like stares at each other like, okay, all right, moving on, you know, and it's just kind of like a stunned silence, or people don't really know what to say, or there's kind of like an awkward pause in the energy. I do feel like that can definitely happen because Mercury in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini can really be like, you know, that impulse to kind of talk and talk and talk and go crazy and overshare. And, you know, this is what happened to me this is my childhood trauma from when I was 5 years old. And this person's like, I just kind of met you. And you're like, okay. And they're like, but I feel like I've known you forever, blah, 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 blah. Right. And then, so the Saturn and Pisces energy is kind of like, whoa, like needing to slow down on that energy or needing to check that energy a little bit. Okay. And it was interesting because, yeah, okay, let me see what everyone's writing too. Holly says black and white works for penguins and zebras. I'm all about the paisley. Gilly Mac says, I'm so high strung, I need a balloon weight, and I annoy myself with that. Yeah. Yeah, the high strung energy can definitely like really kind of get blown out of proportion sometimes. And you know, if we are like overdoing it or taking too many liberties, or we start feeling optimistic, and so we really, like for me, I'll need to watch it because I have been feeling a little bit better the last couple of weeks, that instantly, like when you start to feel better, then you start to like overdo it, right? And then Saturn comes in and checks you and it's like, no. You need to like sit down, be quiet, go back to your meditation rug, stop talking, blah, blah, blah. And so I do think that that could be coming up with Saturn. And if there was a tendency to kind of like overspend or overdo it in the retrograde, we may pay for it a little bit more later on into the retrograde. So I do feel that energy kind of coming on. It was funny today because I was on a really nice walk with my partner, and I was overlooking this marsh with this beautiful water and the beautiful trees. And oh my God, you guys, it was beautiful. I'll post a picture of it later if I can. But I remember looking down at the water today and I thought to myself, I wonder if you could just sit on the edge of this lake forever and look at the water and the mud and the cracks in the mud and the water flowing and the leaves in the mud and, um, the crystal clear water flowing by, the cold water. I wonder if you could just stare and look at that forever and never have another thought again and never have to get up and focus your attention on anything else, right? And how blissful that could be. But how many times as humans we go out like searching for more, or we go looking for what isn't there, searching for more, searching for what is not there, boredom, okay, all of that, right? But how to kind of be so at peace in the moment that literally sitting on the edge of a lake with your hand in the water, staring at all the little formations in the water, like if that could occupy a person from now until the end of their life. And I was talking to my partner about it, and he was like, yeah, I think that that could happen. And a person may like go without eating or drinking or doing any bodily functions for a while either. And we were both like, And we just continued to look at the water, and then we eventually drifted off and walked away. But I thought, that is very like Mercury and Sagittarius square Saturn and Pisces. Like that is very much along those thought processes, right? And Holly says, if I reincarnate as a rock, I can do that. Oh my God. And that's what I was thinking, right? And how peaceful would it be to not always feel like you have to go out searching for something? Now, going out and searching for something to entertain you, something to talk about, something to look at, something to learn, something to do, like going out and searching for something is what kind of like drives us forward as human beings, right? But if you could also just sit there in total surrender and total peace, right? Saturn and Pisces, and you didn't feel that urge to discover something, how peaceful that could feel. And Holly, you are right. I may have to reincarnate as a rock in my next lifetime. And Gilly says, I'm hoping this is my last lifetime in this realm. It sounds kind of nuts, but the karmic beatdown in this lifetime makes me think I slept with an affiliate. Oh, okay, Gilly. Okay, now. And you know what? I am on the same thought train as you are with that. Like for most of my life, I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back to this planet. And I definitely felt that way in my 30s. I thought, God, I'm really like nailing it in this incarnation. I doubt I'll come back. But now that I've got into my 40s, I'm like, oh no, I see the mistakes I've made and I see what I've done, and I'm like, maybe I would come back or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think it's an interesting thought of how maybe some of us get sucked into like reincarnating over and over again, like how we're so deadlocked on the fact, like, oh no, I'm not going to come back again. Like I'm sick and tired of these karmic burdens, right? But then you just continually get sucked into coming back. It's really really fun out there, isn't it, guys? And yeah. 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 What if you were picked up by your soulmate as his pet rock? I'm loving the conversation. I'm truly loving the conversation. And yeah, so anyway, I feel like that is like really deep thoughts for this Mercury retrograde. And one other thing that I would say is Holly says caching is the best of both worlds, a great hobby as Holly hobbies go. Holly, I feel like you have a lot of hobbies, actually. Holly, do you have a lot of hobbies? I feel like you might have a lot of hobbies, my friend. And I mean, I actually, Holly, I'm sure you've heard of it, Holly, because I know you're quite a learned person. But geomancy, right? Geomancy as a form of divination. You better believe that people were doing divination going as far back in time as the first humans, right? Geomancy is a way of reading the signs in the earth in order to divine the will of the universe and actually using a form of like reading the soil or reading the rocks or reading your environment around you, like geomancy as a form of divination was something that was definitely practiced in like caves and in dwellings and oracles in the village. You would go to like an oracle who has her little cave where she's doing geomancy or he's doing geomancy. And I just think that that's really interesting how before there were tarot cards, before there were anything like that, people were doing um, like looking at the flight patterns of birds in order to ascertain the questions to their divinatory or ascertain answers to their divinatory questions and using geomancy, like reading the soil and reading the land and nature as a way to gain further understanding and guidance for their choices and their decisions. And this is why I feel like divination is natural. It is like such a natural thing to do. And human beings have been doing it since I feel like the dawn of time. It's like human beings have been engaged in this practice of trying to discern the future or trying to look at what's ahead or trying to make the best decision possible. And why do you think people would do that, right? Why do you think people would engage in that in the first place? Well, it's because it goes back to our topic, Gilly, that we were just talking about how, lifetimes are very heavy, karma is very heavy. Um, taking on a new lifetime is a very heavy karmic burden. Um, and the ability to like guide your life in a way that feels good to you, that feels like you're getting the most out of this lifetime, that feels really good, like on an emotional and spiritual and mental level. Having that foresight to help you make the best possible decisions possible so that you're not quote unquote like wasting incarnations or like wasting time with the wrong thing. I mean, and you can argue, well, is anything really wasting time? Is anything really, everything's a lesson, everything is da da da. Sure, but at the same time, if you're trying to get the most you can out of, because I mean, as we know, as the Buddhists have taught us, like life is suffering. And that is very true. There's a lot of suffering in life, like getting up and getting out of bed, even if you're the most happy person in the world, just getting up and getting out of bed in the morning can feel very, very hard on a cold morning. Warming up the tea and you're shivering in the kitchen and you got to go scrape your car and you got snow all over it. And it's like, oh, like these things produce suffering. We live in bodies that are like very sensitive to everything, and any little pinprick could cause suffering, right? Any little tiny hangnail could cause suffering at the end of the day. And that's why I feel like people want to know, right? Like divinatory information is incredibly important for people because they understand the weight and the gravity of having an earth incarnation and they don't want to fuck it up and they don't want to like they want to be intelligent about the way that they're living their life and the decisions that they're making. And that is really, really cool. Yeah. Holly says, I keep busy. I keep busy. Yes, indeed. And so it's getting to be like almost midnight here, which is amazing, but I want to talk a little bit about a news story that popped up today, that has been going on in Britain, in the UK, in the United Kingdom. And it just popped up today during the Mercury retrograde. So I think it's a really interesting Mercury retrograde story, as the Parliament of the United Kingdom was like really, really debating, like for over 5 hours. They were locked into a philosophical debate about end of life care. And maybe some of you saw the news story, and I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's very interesting, to get into like a really long, like a 5 hour long debate or a philosophical debate about, end of life care. I wouldn't necessarily like the philosophical debate and the going back and forth and all of that, is very Mercury retrograde. But I also feel like the people of the UK may feel, very passionate about this issue, and I can see why they would. I don't know. I don't live in the UK, so I don't know exactly how everyone's feeling about it, but it is like a very debated, hotly contested issue. And it probably has, because the bill was passed during a Mercury retrograde, it's probably going to be revisited again multiple times in the future and debated again multiple times again in the future, is what I feel, because the law passed during this Mercury retrograde. But for those of you that are like, well, what is this law that you're talking about, Natalie? Okay. And let me go ahead and just show you guys really quick what is going on in the UK. And I just have to pull through this screen right here, where we are looking at what's going on. So in the UK, their parliament has actually voted in favor of a bill to legalize assisted dying in England and Wales. And in the historic vote, the vote came down 330 in favor to 275 against. And it happened after 5 hours of passionate debate. Okay, Mercury and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini. 5 hours of passionate and very emotional debate, from what the news is saying. And basically, like, people were standing out with tears of happiness and some with tears of disappointment. But basically, it is a bill to legalize assisted dying in England and Wales. And basically, like, for people that are terminally ill, what the law basically says is that for people that are terminally ill, they can choose their own death. Like, they don't, if they're terminally ill and they have only 6 months to live or things like that, then they can get assistance from the government or from whatever health agencies in order for them to choose their own passing and basically die with dignity. Now, there are other countries that have, like, death with dignity kind of procedures in their countries. Like Canada has one, several states in the United States do, Switzerland does. And now it looks like the UK and Wales may be having their own, their own thing going on with this. And Gilly Mack is saying, we have bigger problems here, truth be told, Nat. Yeah, and you know what, Gilly, like, I think that's something too that I'm a little, one thing I will say about my astrology of 2025 is there's a lot of US based stuff in my astrology of 2025. And that's because I live in the US and I'm a US citizen, right? But I have friends that live in other parts of the world. And I am trying to like pull in more news stories from other places in the world too, because I don't want the presentation to be like so US focused. And I don't always know and understand all the problems in other countries. And so, you have to excuse me sometimes when I'm kind of talking about stuff in other countries, but I definitely am trying to incorporate, other countries into the issues and things and not just be US focused only. Because I think people in the US, we have a tendency to get really obsessed with ourselves and what our country is doing. And we need to like look further out into the world. Um, but I found this story today, and I think it's a really interesting story. This guy is saying he is a music teacher with stage 4 bowel cancer, which is in his liver, lungs, and brain. And he lost his fiance in 2011 and his mother to the same cancer that he has, and that he is supporting the bill. And he's saying, the thought that kindness could really be there in death. If I face a horrible death, I might actually survive to see the possibility of assisted dying to come into law. If my end isn't looking too good and all the hope is gone, then maybe there could be some solace and some kindness. Okay. So I think that that is really interesting. And they said people were getting very emotional about the debate, telling their stories of losing loved ones and loved ones that have had very challenging deaths. And it says here, MPs vote in favor of historic bill to allow assisted dying after emotional debate. And, having a very emotional debate about something is very, like it fits with the astrology with the Mercury and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini, like debating, but then having it square to Saturn and Pisces and having that very like emotional debate. Also, another thing that I think is really interesting about that law passing is when I think about like compassion and kindness when it comes to death and dying, a sign that I would really connect that with, or two signs that I would really connect that with would be Pisces and Scorpio. And the moon is in Scorpio today, and it is making a trine to Neptune in Pisces. Now, this Neptune in Pisces is a very interesting issue right now because Neptune is about ready to go direct in about a week. On December 7th, Neptune is going to stop its retrogradation and turn direct. And then from the time that Neptune turns direct in about a week, it's going to be moving into Neptune and Aries. And this is a huge topic that I am going to be talking about in my astrology of 2025. And I just think it's a really interesting issue as the North Node is moving into Pisces. Um, and all these planets are going to be at the very end of Pisces and passing over into the Aries, into Aries energy. And I am going to be talking a lot about that, like I said in my presentation. In Vedic astrology, there's something called Gandanta. And when planets pass between the last degrees of a water sign into the early degrees of a fire sign, that's called a Gandanta or a Gandanta point. And we are going to be like in a massive Gandanta point next year as we move into 2025. And like I said, I'm going to talk more about that in the astrology of 2025. But Neptune is getting, and when we think of Neptune and Pisces, like we have had Neptune and Pisces for the last 14 years. And it's actually like in the last couple degrees of Pisces, right? Um, at the 29th degree, 29 29 degrees and 59 minutes, the energy expires out of Pisces and moves into Aries. And right now, Neptune is at 27 degrees Pisces. So we are like at the end of a threshold, and we are like, and I feel Neptune is this energy of thinking what's out there, right? Like what is out there after death. Now, I think it's really interesting that like our lifespan as human beings is, you know, for most people is in their 80s, right? It could be 84, you know, mid 70s, early 80s. Certainly some people are living longer than that, but 84 is kind of like, you know, an age for me when we really start kind of maybe, I don't know, checking out of this lifetime a little bit. And I think it's interesting because at 84 years old, we have a Neptune opposition. Like Neptune is opposing our natal Neptune around that age. And so I think it's really interesting when we think about Neptune, because Neptune for me reminds me of that energy of sort of loosening the tether on like day-to-day reality and kind of moving more towards that spirit world. And we've got Neptune in those last degrees of Pisces. And Neptune, this story about the UK legalizing assisted dying is actually like happening within a week of Neptune going retrograde in Pisces. And, you know, like within a week of Saturn going retrograde in Pisces too. And it is being hotly debated during this Mercury retrograde. But I think that it is very like interesting that we're having a discussion about, you know, compassionate release, right? Compassionate release from life, like, you know, hugging someone, wishing them well. I don't want to see you in pain anymore. It's okay to let go. I'm crossing the threshold, like that type of energy. You know, joyous celebration of life, but also compassionate letting go of those who are like, it's their time to leave the earth plane. That's very much like Neptune, you know, approaching the very last degrees of Pisces. And what comes after that, right? It's the great big unknown. It's the great ocean. It's the great returning to source that none of us really know what comes after that. I mean, yeah, there's books. Yeah, people have had, you know, um, after what I can't even think of what it's called right now because I'm like in the middle of in the middle of channeling something here, but near death experiences, right? Like people have those types of experiences, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't know. I mean, we don't really know what lies on the other side of everything. And returning to that great, you know, spiritual ocean of letting go and connecting towards the undifferentiated chaos of the universe is very Neptune and Pisces in the last degrees of Pisces. And regardless of how, like, you know, you feel about the issue, I think we can all agree that, you know, more compassion for people's pain, more willingness to accept where people are at with their pain and give them the space to kind of, you know, have that experience for themselves is a really important thing. And it doesn't surprise me that on a day that this happened, the moon's in Scorpio either, and that it is trining that Neptune in Pisces. And yeah. And death, ironically, is the hardest part of life, darlings. And Holly says it's only the hardest because we've been taught to fear it. Yeah. If you make a practice of having a few yes days every year, you'll just realize how much living one can do. And yeah, so I think it's a very like interesting energy with this law passing and where Neptune is and the fact that Neptune is going to be going direct and how the moon was in Scorpio today. I think it's all very fitting. And I think it really leads us nicely into next year where we're going to be having a lot of planets that are straddling Pisces and Aries and moving back and forth in between that space. Okay. And I'm really excited to talk about that and what that might bring for next year. And I'm actually shuffling right now, and I'm going to pull one more card for everybody who is listening today. And Gilly is asking, do astrologers ever talk about Nirabu? You know, Gilly, yeah, I do think that there are some people, and I've heard of that before. And I do think that there are some astrologers that talk about that. Um, the hard part about astrology is that there's so many things to talk about. I mean, there's like thousands of asteroids. There's like there's just even just dealing with the seven traditional planets can be a lot. Um, and then you start adding in Rahu and Ketu, the North Node and the South Node, and you start adding in Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I mean, you could just go on and on forever with everything you could learn about astrology. So Nirbu is not something that I have studied a whole lot. And there's a couple things that I've skimmed information on that I haven't like studied a whole lot of. I would say Atlantis is one of those things that I haven't like deeply studied, although I'd like to. And I would also say like Egyptian culture and history is something I haven't studied in depth, and I would like to learn more about that. I actually have a friend here in Virginia Beach who's an expert on Egypt who just got back from leading like a tour in Egypt, and she was telling me the night of the new moon in Scorpio that they did a ritual in one of the pyramids, and that she was like leading them through that. And she has friends that live in Egypt that she stays with that are Egyptians when she goes there and everything. And I'm just like, whoa. And her level of knowledge about Egypt and the gods and all of that is really truly, I mean, it's truly amazing. Um, just all the knowledge that she has accumulated. I'm like, whoa, it's pretty amazing and pretty cool. She's like a walking library of Egypt. And I'm gonna go ahead and draw us another card here. And I think that's really good too. Like Mercury in Sagittarius opposite Jupiter in Gemini, like complimenting another person for being really smart about a particular issue, or giving someone a nice compliment and saying, wow, you really have a lot of knowledge in this area, and I'm really like enthused to talk to you, or I'm really interested to get to know the things that you know, or I'm interested in having a conversation about this. I'm just in awe of certain things that and I'd like to get to know more about that, right? I feel like giving a nice compliment like that to someone during this Mercury retrograde could really go a long way, like appreciating people who have taught you things, and it's like, wow, it's really cool. Thanks for, sharing, and all of that could be a nice thing it could be a really nice thing to kind of do for somebody. Now, let me go ahead and get everybody a card here. And we are going to, ooh, I love it. Look, you guys, look at the card there. And look at, it's a horse. Oh my God. And we've been talking about Mercury and Sagittarius all night. Look, it's a horse, guys. And it says circles. Clarity begins in the eye of the storm. Oh my God. You guys, can you believe that? I'm getting chills right now. What a message. I mean, when we're talking about this Pisces energy and being in the eye of the storm, clarity begins in the eye of the storm. Oh my gosh. And it's a message about not avoiding the eye of the storm, right? Like not avoiding it, going into it and being willing to accept it and stand in the messiness and chaos without avoiding it, and using that as a way to find clarity, which is really a strange way to find clarity, but hey. And I was going to write one of my messages is to not get in endless loop conversations with people who are never going to agree with you or see it your way. But I mean, maybe sometimes we do need to move in those circles so that we can get the clarity that we need. And I am going to read a little bit. It says here, okay, and this circles card is from phase 4, from the crone phase. Okay. And I'm reading from the Lantern Oracle here. I'm just going to read a little bit. And this has to do with acceptance, integration, reconcilement, and wisdom. And it says, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors and relationship patterns are potentially detrimentally circular when they remain unconscious. Without acknowledging that we do not know what we are doing or how to get to different results, it seems as though the same disappointments, the same ruts and detours keep happening to us. And this is because we do not realize our subconscious part in these unwanted reoccurrences, nor that we have the power to exit the un-merry-go-round. Okay. If we do nothing different, nothing different happens. We will only continue to reenact our default settings automatically. A life lived in circles inevitably limits what is possible for us. It can also be particularly harmful when toxic relationships, addiction, or financial dependence is involved. Awareness of how we perpetrate more of the same is necessary before we can consciously create an upward and outward spiral of life for ourselves. The key to becoming aware of the highly charged and compulsive psychological dynamics in this is the key to become aware of highly charged and compulsive psychological dynamics. Without clarity, we cannot exit the matrix. Okay. Without clarity, it doesn't say matrix in the book. I just made that up. But without clarity, we cannot exit the matrix that has some sort of magnetic toxicity at its core. Although it can be painful and confronting to understand the dynamics that continue to trigger us, awareness is the doorway out of any roundabout we want to step off of. To support you in this process, journal the following. Where in your life do you feel stuck and not knowing what to do, going in circles? Write out the inner dialogue or thoughts surrounding the areas from the previous prompt. Okay. Highlight any incongruent thoughts and emotional processes that are at play and make a note of their effect on you. See if you can unpack any existing conflicts and desire for clarity on what you actually want. Notice if there is a trajectory of any emotions that you typically cycle through. This is a big one, guys, right? Notice if there is a trajectory of any emotions you typically cycle through. When I get upset, I get confused, I freak out, I get really disoriented. I don't know which way I want to go. And then I sink into a depression, right? That could be Mercury and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini, square Saturn and Pisces. Okay. And notice any instances that send your confidence spiraling downward and determine whether this negatively impacts your ability to break out of any circular life patterns. Okay. And highlight what is presently propelling you forward and brainstorm how you can increase its positive presence and influence in your life. Okay. Make a list of capable and appropriate people who can be called upon for help and support as you venture beyond life as you have known it. Oh my gosh, I love that last point. Okay. And it says, you are your white horse, ever equipped to venture forward. You are your own white horse, ever equipped to venture forward. And I love that idea of making a list of capable and appropriate people, right? So it's like, okay, I'm not going to go back to my ex and ask them to explain this to me. I'm not going to go talk to that friend that always makes me feel like crap just for asking a basic question. I'm not going to go back to that person that never has time for me and is never there for me, right? It's like I'm going to make a list of capable people, okay, who are appropriate in my life, who can be called upon for help and support as you venture beyond life as you have known it. I was talking about my friend that knows all about Egypt, and it's like, if I want to learn more about Egypt or have a book recommended to me rather than going down 1,000 different paths about it, I could just go ask her and be like, hey, where do you think I should start? Or what do you think I should do? Right. And I think that that is very, very helpful there. And Holly says, I think you and your boyfriend should learn the shag, Natalie. You'd have fun, great group. What's the shag? I've never heard of that. What is that actually? Um, it's is that a horizontal dance? What is that? And then you ad lib indecision that induces fawning when the stagnation makes you feel, oh yeah, I hear you, Gilly. I hear you on that. And yeah, I don't know what that is with the snag or this shag, not the snag, the shag. Oh my gosh. So what a perfect card tonight to come through, talking about like going in circles and how sometimes maybe we have to go in circles so that we can figure out what's actually going on. Um, and I would also feel like with this Mercury and Sagittarius opposite Jupiter and Gemini, that we don't make things more complicated than they need to be, right? Because if we start like inventing a bunch of reasons and a bunch of thoughts for everything, then it's like, okay, I'm too tired, I'm too exhausted, I don't even want to go anymore, right? Like that type of energy. So maybe trying to simplify things a little bit and maybe not make them as complicated as they really are, or we don't want to invent more complication where there doesn't really need to be that much complication around something. Um, it's a southeastern style of dancing. Oh my gosh, I never heard of that. And I love dancing, actually. I actually really do love dancing. And it's a great way to like blow off steam or blow off energy or just be creative in the moment. And yeah, going dancing is really, really fun. Any type of dance, actually, I really do enjoy. Anyway, y'all. It is Hell's Bells, my friends. It is actually past midnight here. So it's probably time for me to turn in as the old lady that I am. But thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, you guys. And thank you so much for my friend Nicholas for stopping by too. It was amazing to virtually catch up with you. I don't know if you're still around, probably not. I'm sure maybe you're doing your own thing right now, but I know Geminis, they're in and out, all around everywhere. Um, but thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate you for commenting on the live. It makes it so much more fun. And I enjoyed having you all here. So I hope to see you all again really soon. And I hope everybody is taking care. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Get some rest. Mwah.